So that's kind of my origin story. And so for me to think about how I've actually come from the point of sobbing to where I'm now on a podcast and I'm speaking my truth out into the world, every time I think about it, it blows my mind. It's I'm like, wow, is this really true? Is this really happening? But yeah, it absolutely is. And there are so many people out there who have a lot to say. And so that's what we're going to do here is we're going to talk to them. We're going to talk to these artists. We're going to get some of those tools in the toolbox. We're going to hear some amazing stories. And we all get to share it with you.
Every fruit on the tree started out with a seed. So dare to believe the impossible is possible. And so your deepest dream, grow your truest dream, bloom your freest dream with me.
Hi, welcome to the Artist Bridge to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Michele Renee Stone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the origin story of this podcast and tell you a little bit about me and my life. Over the years, I've had many conversations with emerging artists, mid-level artists, and extremely successful artists. And there's always a disconnect somewhere in between there where you have the emerging artists. Some of them, the majority of emerging artists are coming into art from a place of newness. They don't have MFAs, they don't have BFAs. They are looking at it as this next step in their life. They have a lot of them have had previous careers. Some of them are empty nesters, some of them are retirees, and they're looking for a way to finally fulfill that hole that's been inside of them for the majority of their life. Or there's something, a lot of them sometimes they even went to school to get some sort of art degree, but then life happened. They got married, had a family, and they come to me with all of these questions. And it could be anywhere from how do I fill out an application to, what is the next step? I just won an award and now I want to know what to do next. And I'm thinking of one person in particular right now. I just entered his very first show with a piece of photography, won an award, and then he's like, oh my gosh, what is next? Newly retired and trying to figure it out. And so then there's all these questions of, how do I find the right venue? How do I find the right framer? How do I market myself? How do I keep inventory? How do there's a plethora of questions. And then I also being in this field for as long as I have and having conversations with people who are well established, they have all those answers because they've gone through all of those, they've had all of those experiences. And so there's putting both of them in the same room at the same time so you can have the questions answered is, I don't want to say it's hard pressed, but I think it doesn't happen that often because where emerging artists are, there's not always experienced artists. And my thought was to take these kinds of conversations with my experienced artist friends and put that out into the world so then the emerging and the mid-level artists could get those little nuggets, those tips and tricks, as I like to call it, of things that have helped them, that have kind of pushed them along. And this whole series is starting off with 10 episodes with people who have been exhibiting for up to 50 years. And so they have a lot of different experience, a lot of different tools in their toolbox, if you will. And I found it really joyful to have these people come into the studio or for me to go into their studio and to ask these questions of I've already kind of heard in the back of my mind from the emerging artists. And so I think that this will be a really beneficial for a lot of new artists that are out there, people who are really stepping into the art scene and trying to figure it out. My hope is that the new artists and mid-level artists will be less frustrated and less and feel more confident and feel more clarity and have more direction after listening to these podcast episodes. So there was a point in my life where I was absolutely terrified to speak in public. And I consider myself pretty outgoing. I'll go to events and I'll talk to different people. And there was one point in my career where I was part of a larger corporation, and there was a lot of people who, because it's such a large corporation, it was hard for people to really kind of connect. And so I kept hearing these conversations about, I'd like to connect with people on the other side of campus. And so I went to, the powers that be, and I said, hey, I'd like to start something. I called it an employee activity committee, and start to have these activities so that people could start to really get to know one another. Once it started really going, and we would have these monthly events and different things, and the morale started really improving. And the CEO of this organization asked me to get up and start speaking at the monthly meetings. There were like 250 plus people there. So I'd write out my speech and cover all the things that I wanted to. But when I got up to that podium, I froze. And I would literally sob, like as if someone were screaming at me, like absolute sob for minutes on end. And it was embarrassing. It was awkward. It was just really hard. And I remember riding the elevator up with the CEO one day, and I was like, how do you do it? Like, how do you speak in front of thousands of people and keep your composure? And like she said, Michelle, what I do is I do two things. Number one, I remember that wherever you are, whoever you're speaking in front of, those people are there to hear you, that you have something important to say, and that they want to hear what you have to say. And then the other thing she said is, I also remember that each person that is in that audience, all 250, all, 10,000, whatever it is, that I'm basically having a one-on-one conversation with each one of these people. And then I had another person tell me that, you're the expert in your field. You know what you're talking about. Just speak from your heart, speak from your experience, speak from that place that of knowingness. So that's kind of my origin story. And so for me to think about how I've actually come from the point of sobbing to where I'm now on a podcast and I'm speaking my truth out into the world, every time I think about it, it blows my mind. It's I'm like, wow, is this really true? Is this really happening? But yeah, it absolutely is. And there are so many people out there who have a lot to say. And so that's what we're going to do here is we're going to talk to them. We're going to talk to these artists. We're going to get some of those tools in the toolbox. We're going to hear some amazing stories. And we all get to share it with you. I've watched artists go from here. I have this piece of art. There's something about an artist who, especially because what we create is from inside and we come from a place of vulnerability. We come from a place of, this is something that I'm creating from my imagination, that I'm creating from this feeling or this idea or these images that I have in my head, and I want to put it out in the world. And, you know, sometimes it's really, really hard, especially if you're doing it for the first time or you're just coming into the art scene. It's it's vulnerable. There's a space of newness, a space of uncertainty, a space of curiosity, and every artist I know is curious, and they come from a space of wonder. There's a point in their evolution of what they do with art that always kind of comes back to that wonder and curiosity. And so to watch them come from that place of, I'm going to put something on canvas, or I'm going to create a sculpture, or I'm going to design some jewelry, or whatever the case may be, whatever medium or modality that they use, and they're putting themselves into that piece, and they're putting all of their energy into it and doing their best. And then they bring it to a curator. And so a curator has a title, right? They're the curator. And a lot of the time, people come to the curators with this piece that they have created that is wholesome and vulnerable and honest, and basically ask you to accept it or accept them. And so when I first see these emerging artists do that, I think it's beautiful, and I'd love to encourage them. And what I'd love to see is, as they come in and they get accepted into the show, and then they continue to come, and then eventually they win awards, or eventually they sell work, and then they start to go off into other exhibits or other galleries or other art institutions, and before you know it, they're teaching, or they're going around to festivals. It's just so rewarding to see this evolution where people start off from this space of vulnerability, and then now to watch their confidence grow, the clarity and understanding of what their artist voice is, and to be putting it out into the world for all to see. It's like stepping into their own. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And every time I see it, it just fills my heart. It's extraordinary. I think when it comes to artists, especially like working with emerging artists and even working with like established artists, we always have room to grow, like regardless of where we are in life or what profession that we do. And so I have this natural ability to hone in on what people are already doing really, really well. And then not only help them amplify that, but then also take the things that could be improved and could kind of buffer or be analogous to support the things that they're already doing well, and talk about those and inspire them to utilize those skills a little bit more, to hone those skills a little bit more. Also, I am what they call a bridge. I'm one of those people where I can see, I have this intuitive sense of connecting one person with another person. And so that's one of the other reasons why I've started this Artist Bridge to Abundance. As artists, we're really passionate about our community, and we really believe that, each one teach one, if you will. And so to help each other, to raise each other up, to help each other with information, but not, everybody's not always going to be in the same room. And so how do we share that information? And so again, here with this podcast, that is one of the main goals, is to share these new, these tools that people have experienced in their toolboxes. What happens when an artist steps into their voice? It's one of the most magical things to watch an artist come in and say, I have this new thing. I'm trying something new. I'm scared. I just retired. I want to try photography, or I just retired and I'm empty nesting now and I've decided to pick up soft pastels again. Or I just had a baby and, I want to get back to my plein air, and then win an award with the very first painting after not painting for 3 years. It's it's so magical to see people like really step into who they are, who they're meant to be, and to fulfill their artistic voice. There's nothing like it. You can't. It's one of the most magical things I think in the world, to have those aha moments, to move to a new city and think that, oh no, there's not a lot of artists that are out there in my community, and kind of start to put themselves out there, and now they're having shows. Now they're having like year-long installations, it it truly it feeds my soul and it makes my heart sing all at the same time. It's extraordinary. Every time someone who steps into their space of creativity and try something and be courageous and be brave and put themselves out there, that gives permission to the people in their lives to do that too. And then it gives permission in those people's lives to, it's a ripple effect. It just keeps on going. So we don't ever know how much of an impact we're going to have in our community, and then how far out into the world that is going to resonate. I truly believe that it's our responsibility as artists to put our artwork out into the world, that we can't keep it inside, because creativity does not go stagnant. It kind of builds up. And so we need to continue to create, to come up with ideas, to put things out in the world. And I also believe that people who are out there, that for every piece of artwork that is out there, there is someone who is asking for that. There's someone who is looking for that piece of artwork, that there's something that's going to touch them in a way that nothing else can touch them. Art has a way of tapping into that nonverbal part of the psyche, and and allow us to feel something that we can't feel any other way. That there's no other words, there's no other ways to allow us to experience that experience. There's something called an artist block, and not everybody understands it. Some people have it. Some artists that I talk to are like, I never have any artist blocks because I'm always flowing. Okay, and that's wonderful. But there are artists out there who do have these artist blocks where they get stuck. Or I've started to identify that there's a cycle that's part of it. And then when you get to like that last part of the cycle and you try to step into, okay, what's next? And that integration phase of, okay, so I just sold a work, or so I just, I went to my first show and I won an award, and what is next? You're doing something really, really big, like this podcast that I've started. I got a grant from the St. Pete Arts Alliance, from which I am absolutely grateful for. And in the last 6 months, this has stretched me more than I've ever been stretched before in my life. I've come across obstacles that have kind of held me back, or where I froze for a little bit. And then I had to like really step into it's okay, Michele, you're expanding, you're growing, you're being more visible. Kind of going back to when I, speaking on stage, speaking behind a podium, you know, the more vulnerable we are, the more visible we become, the scarier it is. And sometimes our body doesn't quite know what to do with that. And if we just allow yourself to have it, sometimes just going back out into nature, or going back to that space of wonder, it gives you permission to take that next step. And I think that's really, really important, because not everybody does that. And not everybody experiences that either. There are some artists that I talk to that are like, really? Like, some people have problems with integration, or they have problems with, or, they get stuck when they get to that next level. And I'm like, yeah, some people do. And it's a thing. Knowing that's part of our journey, and that's, it's only fear, and the thing that we want the most is just actually on the other side of fear. I think a lot in metaphors, and so for that particular moment I think of the jump rope, right? So if you're standing there and you have a jump rope in front of you, all you have to do is just do a little hop movement, and you can bring the jump rope behind you, and anything in motion stays in motion. And so you just hop, so you just make that phone call, you just get out your drawing paper and a pencil, or I don't know, you pull out your paintbrush and you spritz your watercolors and you just make one line on the paper, or you get out a little bit of clay and you make a pitch pot. Who knows? Allowing yourself to be in that space just long enough to go, okay, I'm here. And then now what is the next right step? I think that that is really, really important. And so, as artists, again, going back to that, all of this art, all this creativity is inside of us for a reason. And so just allowing it to flow, giving ourselves permission to be stuck and then also to finding a way. And sometimes finding the way out of that stuckness is not linear. Sometimes it's like, let's take a left turn, Clyde, and we go a different direction. Sometimes if we're a sculptor and we're stuck with like what is our next piece, it maybe taking a class on needle felting. Who knows? But that'll kind of give you something new, something it there's so much in the art world that we can just learn and grow from and evolve through. It it's abundance. It's true abundance. So this podcast is really here to be a bridge from the emerging artists to the established artists, to answer questions, to give inspiration, to provide hope for people who are newly into the art scene and trying to figure it out. It's, trying to understand what the next steps are, trying to like really lean into how they can build a career out of this and how it can be sustainable and how they can create their own abundance through their art career. And that's really what this podcast is all about. I was raised in a family where they did not find value in art. They were primarily entrepreneurs, and I was told to go to school for business so that I could be able to make a life for myself, be able to, provide for myself. And I spent a lot of years like feeling like there was this hole inside of me because I wasn't following what truly fed my soul. And it's really important to me because there were people along my journey. I had two aunts specifically who, when I was younger, were really amazing and they kept nurturing my creativity. I also had a a great grandfather who, when I was like maybe 4 years old, who was painting murals on the side of um, on the side of a building, and he would have me in one arm and the paintbrush in the other arm and paint. And so I had all of these like artists who were nurturing, these really like creative, nurturing people in my world that really helped me like lean into that creative aspect of me and kind of in it, and it stayed with me, all those little tips and tricks. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table with one of my aunts one time and just watching her color a coloring sheet, and she outlined it, and it was just so, the way that she colored was just so perfect, and she still does it to this day. And I would ask her like, how do you do that? And she gave me, you know her the reasoning behind what she does. And I think that that was probably one of those most profound moments where it's like there's always going to be people ahead of you doing stuff, doing what you're already doing what you want to do. And those people can lead the way. Those people can provide that path. Those people can give you their tools that they've learned from their toolbox. And that's what this is for the world. So if you are watching my YouTube channel, I've had this YouTube channel since 2019. And there was a point a couple of years ago where I was like, you know what? I have enough followers. Why don't I go live and just do like, a short meditation, kind of ground yourself, and then just do like an intuitive art process. And so I have a friend of mine, Claudia Doza, who is certified in therapeutic arts the way that I am. And I invited her to join me. And so we started doing that, and we thought, this is kind of cool. I wonder what it would be like if we were to bring other artists in this whole conversation. And being part of this grant process is quite a bit different than just randomly going live on YouTube. There's there's been absolutely more intention, more deliberateness about making sure that this message is really clear and intentional. And it's absolutely incredible. The St. Pete Arts Alliance awarded me a grant to do this particular podcast, and I am deeply grateful for it because over the last 6 months, putting all of this together has really been a profound experience for me because, uh, again, going back to being visible, being vulnerable. Like I know that I've it's like this is the next step in my phase is moving forward, is taking this information out into the world, and so that other people can hear, other people can see it, other people can experience these conversations for themselves, and that they can up level. And so, like if I'm up leveling, I want to raise those around me as well. And so it's been an incredible experience. And all the people, there are 10 artists who told me yes. And I am deeply, deeply grateful for you, for your time, for your support, and just my community, my friends and my family who have been like, wow, Michele, this is fantastic. I actually had one of my friends say, wait, who starts a podcast? And I'm like, I do. So anyway, I just wanted to share all of that with you. I am so incredibly grateful that you are here, and I hope that you enjoy the show. And if you have any thoughts, any questions, any topics you want me to talk about, please put them in the notes below and I will do my best. And also, this podcast will be airing every other Tuesday starting May 5th, 2026. And go ahead and subscribe below, click the little bell, and so you can follow along.